Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you for taking a minute out. I love this story. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Do you have any questions? Are you ready to hop in?
Hop in.
Let's do it. Again, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I'm looking forward to getting into your story, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's begin our adventure here with this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed everything for all of us, rearranged everything. How did you make it through that pandemic, and how has it affected the way that you live and work in 2025?
Whoa. Um,
James, you got this?
yeah, I wasn't. I didn't have a answer prepared for this one. Um, the pandemic was scary. Um, I had just moved to Scottsdale from Chicago. My wife had passed late 2019 or June of 2019, and then I moved to Scottsdale. I left January 1st, 2020, and the pandemic hit, March 12th or whatever. The NBA shut down. And it was, I was kind of isolated because I just got to Arizona, completely uplifted my life. And now I thought the stock market was going to crash and I was going to be broke. Um, I pulled everything I had out of the market and put everything in cash. And that lasted about 2 months. And then I reinvested it and then just survived. Bought a lot of hand sanitizer that I don't think I ever touched. But uh, Tom?
Yeah, I did. I bought no hand sanitizer at all. I used none. I got I transitioned out of the military in 2015 and 2016, the end of 15 and into 16. I finished up my time at Northwestern. I played football at Northwestern University. I was stationed in Great Lakes from end of 2013, 14, 15, and transitioned out of the military. But at that time, I played football with Fitzgerald and the Wildcats from 2013 while I was still active duty, 2014 still active duty, and then as I got out in 15 and 16 and finished up my senior year at Northwestern in 2016, I got divorced. Hold on, check this out. So I had my fourth child. So I was deployed all over in my time in the SEAL teams. And for my first three kids, I made it home just coincidentally and luckily for the first three kids being born. So I was there when all three, and then my fourth, I was in punt practice in Northwestern when I got the phone. My fourth son was being born currently in Hobart or in Crown Point, Indiana. So I ran out of practice and drove back to Crown Point, and I just barely missed his birth. But it's funny, I was deployed all over, make it back for the first three. I'm home, but playing football, and I missed my fourth one. I know it sometimes sounds terrible, but so I have four sons, and this is in 2015. I get divorced in 2017. So in 17, the end half of 2017, I pretty much move out of my house and I move into this barn during the first couple years of my divorce. 2019, COVID comes in. I'm living in a barn. COVID kind of gave me the go ahead, the permission to just get rid of everything and recreate my life entirely. And so I'm in the process of transitioning from the military, transitioning from football, transitioning from being married. I have four kids. I now live in a barn on a farm. I began growing my own food, raising chickens. um, designing a life and entirely around being sustainable, doing things healthily, being organic, cutting out pesticides, herbicides. Um, so for me, in a lot of ways, COVID gave me permission to completely recreate my entire life. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sit back in a space that was safe and protected. And of course, I had to observe and watch lots of people that had a really tough time. They suffered and they lost people in COVID. But I was fortunate that I had a space where I could help provide safety, a really nice spot for a lot of people to go to. So COVID was an interesting
Yeah.
position for me
Yeah.
from what a lot of other people had seen, and actually brought me a sense of freedom, and allowed me to kind of change and transition my life in a beautiful way. So that was COVID for me.
Yeah. So both of you have very different backgrounds. How did you two come together for these novels? How did all of this happen? What was the nexus of this relationship?
Well, I was living in the Chicago area, um, and I was writing a book about an older college football player. This is around 2014, something like that, 15. Um, and I've been friends with Pat Fitzgerald, the head coach at Northwestern, for a few years. I did a lot of business with the Northwestern athletic department um, in Evanston, Illinois. And I asked Pat if I could go to summer camp with the Wildcats because I didn't play college football. And if I'm an author writing about it, I kind of want to get it right. And this is about, a walk-on older guy making a college football team. So he said, yeah, come on up to Kenosha. They had a 10-day camp, 11-day camp in Kenosha, Wisconsin every year before football season started. And he said, just, shadow me on the sideline. And he said, you should meet Tom Hruby. And I had heard about Tom Hruby, an active duty Navy SEAL playing football for the Wildcats. And I'm like, great, awesome, let's do it. So I met Tom, and he was helping with the story I was working on. And then I said to him, the story I'm working on is interesting, but your life story is way more interesting. Are you interested in doing a biography? And the timing wasn't right. Um, he had a lot of, as he just explained, stuff going on at the time. So we just kind of stayed in touch. And a couple years ago, we met in Chicago for dinner. And he said, are you still interested in writing a book? And I said, absolutely, but I'd rather do a novel with the protagonist based on your life instead of a biography. And he said, perfect. I'd rather do that too. And that's how it started.
So, it's one thing to hook up on something like this, but it's another thing to have chemistry so it works. So what you're going to write is going to work, and the way that you're going to honor his life, and that whole thing. What is it about the union between you two? What is it about the chemistry, your personality, that has made this successful?
Tom?
Well, there's I mean, there's so that the Breacher's Playbook, the story takes a non-linear approach. So we start the book at spring or summer camp in Kenosha with Northwestern and the football team. Declan walks in. He's introduced to the team, and he has some dialogue with the team, and it kind of begins there. So we get to see some of these sort of unique situations that, I mean, people just don't have eyes into. Um, and the way I look at my life, maybe as a whole, from a 30,000 feet, is I just love to experience an adventure into places that maybe you wouldn't have access to unless you're willing to do that and take a real risk, spend a lot of energy and time, and you got to be very creative to find ways into these worlds, right? So that's kind of how I look at myself now: is how do I find my way in and out of these very interesting, unusual worlds? And the truth is, James is the exact same way. The difference is he doesn't have the same natural skill sets to get into some of the worlds that maybe I could get into, and vice versa. I don't have those same skill sets, right? James was a nightclub owner and a bar owner and rubbed shoulders with professional athletes and actors and politicians throughout the Chicagoland area. He's worked with professional bull riders, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot to his story too. So he has that same mentality. So I think that that's where, if I were to say, where does that sort of synergy come from? It comes from, essentially at the core, we're very similar in that we want to explore worlds that, aren't have gone unexplored, or that we just find interesting, that we find exciting. My story, I think, as a biography, is of course wildly interesting. But my story, in conjunction with James's stories and his skill sets and my skill sets, in a fictionalized variation of it, where we can take that anywhere. For example, in the story, Declan goes to Quantico and becomes an FBI agent. So James and I had permission to tour the FBI facilities in Quantico. And so we got to see that entire process, meet another Navy SEAL who runs Hogan's Alley, which is one of the key, I don't know, what is it? Tactical.
It's a city they built to train FBI agent candidates. I mean, there's movie theaters, restaurants, post offices, houses, all the scenarios that they would come into in real life. And it's an actual functional city, and they create crime scenarios to train these guys. I mean, when I was there observing, they had a movie, an active shooter in a movie theater, and they've got a full-size movie theater there. So they had, choppers hovering overhead with agents dropping down, and John Lauer, the SEAL who runs Hogan's Alley, is, explaining to us exactly what's going on. It was a fascinating look at the FBI training academy.
So to get a better idea of how we arrived at where we're at, where you two are both professionally and how you connected, when you were kids, what was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I actually have it written down from sixth grade. My mom kept this, and my first choice was to be in the military. My second was to be an actor, and my third was to be a doctor. So those were my three aspirations. So of course, I made it into the military. I'm sure we all do some acting here and there, so I'll give myself credit there. I'm on a podcast, all right, so that's close. And I'd love to see this book and series one day turned into something for the film, for feature length as well.
Yeah.
And then I've become a shaman. So I do heal, and that's a big part of the Breacher's Playbook. And that's another experience that readers can go on. A transitioning military, a man of war, a man of violence, transitioning back into the regular world. Somebody that has experienced addictions and childhood traumas, and the PTSD of war and life, and finding healing and growth there. Declan Novak in the Breacher's Playbook goes through that process as well. So we get to see that, and Declan developing these skills as a healer, and becomes that in addition to everything else that took place. So That's all. Those are all additional worlds that James and I have gotten to walk through.
Mine was a little simpler. I just wanted to be a cowboy when I was a kid. And as I became an adult, I never stopped wanting to do that. And it just took me to various different roads that a lot of people in my life were disappointed with. But it took me into writing, and it took me into rodeo, and it took me out west a lot. But um, I never I never wanted to be a restaurant nightclub owner, which I became for years and years. People would always say, "Oh, it's in your blood," and I go, "No, it isn't. It's definitely not my blood." Um, and writing became what was in my blood.
So, speaking of that art of storytelling, what was your favorite writer or your favorite movie growing up that has propelled you and given you kind of a vision or a feeling of what you want to present to the audience?
Good question. Um, I would have, it's kind of ironic because the man just passed away a few days ago. I think Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid had a profound effect on me from a lot of different areas. The writing was unbelievable. It was, entertaining for sure. Um, but um, authors, um, I love Michael Connolly, um, Lee Childs, Harlan Coben is one of my favorite authors. These recurring characters are what keeps my interest.
So, Tom, who's the actor that's going to play you when it hits the silver screen?
We've, I think we're pretty narrowed down to Tom Hardy. What do you think, Joe? How's that? That
Yeah,
looks pretty good, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Um, who else did we think?
Taylor Kitsch,
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's been playing a lot of Navy SEALs lately, but why break the mold? He's good at it.
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So let me ask you this: when you went into this venture to write this book, the thing about anything, like when you're a kid and you're thinking about getting in the military, or if you want to be a writer or a cowboy, you have this idea of what the life is going to be like. You have this ideology, this book that you almost construct in your mind. But then there's the reality of it. What's the difference between this idea of what you thought the book and the process was going to be and releasing it, and then what has been the reality of it happening and the response and the reviews? What is the difference between those two worlds for you two?
Well, I'd say one of them I can create in an evening in my mind from beginning to end, and one of them takes a very long time. And I think it takes a great amount of fortitude and discipline to start the process and finish it. And it's still not finished. The whole process is still yet to be finished. We have a long way that we still like to go. I think we've created a fantastic story, a great character. We have great intentions. We look forward to creating follow-on books in the series. So we still have a lot of work to go. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of obstacles along the way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of frustration that goes along with being a writer. And the quality has to be on the page, or you're going nowhere, period. But after that, there's a lot of non-creative hands that will dictate a lot of the process, and that gets frustrating sometimes.
So let me ask you this. When you look at this union of coming together to create this story that's obviously going to continue, and you look at everything that you've accomplished and evolved to in your life, how does this rank on things that you're proudest of in your life?
Huh. I'm super proud of this book, the collaboration that we were able to create, the camaraderie that came out of it. Um, it's the best book I've written, and I've written 10 books. Um, is it, I have 4 kids and a couple grandkids. I know I look so young to have
You do.
grandkids. Yeah. I got married when I was 11, but
Who's counting?
you know, it ranks up there for me. Um, Tom?
Yeah, I agree. So we're in a great spot, James. It's a culmination of a lot of years of experience and hard work. I'm very proud of our project.
I mean, we both, put a lot into this. I'm certainly glad that he was the one that went through buds and not me. But I say he did the hard stuff. Um, but it worked together. I think the story uh, is an example of a good collaboration. We didn't argue about anything.
No, no, there was no arguing. Occasionally, we might have had differing views of how Declan might handle a particular situation. Um, but there were also so many times where James and I both had a very clear a connection with Declan, the character, where we both had the same exact idea how this would take place. So, I mean, the character himself is I mean, he's a fully developed, fully, you know, emotional creature of its own that both James and I have a total connection. So, I mean, those are kind of cool things that, again, not many people will experience writing a book and a story and a character with another person.
Yeah.
And we both have a full connection with that character. Like it just sounds weird, even me saying all of that.
Yeah.
Yet that is what it is and what it feels like. Yeah, there's so many great scenes. There's a bar fight scene where both of us have been involved in bar fights, and so we both understand the way Declan handles this, right? In Steamboat Springs, Declan's in Steamboat Springs, and he gets in this bar fight with this, with the antagonist, really, of the at least of that section of the book. Uh, uh, um, yeah, so it's pretty cool.
So if you each had to pick one of the greatest things about working with each other, one of the greatest attributes of working with each other, what would be the one thing you would pick?
Mm, mm. Uh, I mean, James is just ridiculously patient. I mean, his ability to sit and wait and ask for uh, um, and wait for me to work through because I'm right in the middle of in the trenches of my life and my young kids and so he does a great job of making sure that we get where we need to be and make sure that I follow through with some of the things that I need to follow through with. And then of course he's just he's a creative master. He's really, in so many ways, genius in how he writes and takes the things that I give to him and that I write, and we are able to just tie it into the story in great ways.
Tom's taught me, I mean, we've all read the horror stories of Navy SEAL training, and when you really look at it, um and you wonder how anyone ever gets through that, and getting to know Tom, um taught me how to get through a lot of things. And it's um he told me one time that it doesn't matter what they do to you in buds, if you know you're going to make it, they can't make you quit. I mean, you could get hurt, or you could fail some kind of test, but the torture that the instructors heap on these guys for a reason. They want the best to get through it. I thought it was so interesting when he said it doesn't matter what they do, they can't make you quit if you know you're going to make it through. And when you know to have the kind of mindset where the only way I'm going to quit this training is if I die, and not to have it, just a verbal mantra, but to have it something that you actually believe in, is remarkable. And, it's still amazing to peel back the layers of this guy and find more there. It's fun.
So if anybody wants to pick up a copy of the Breacher's Playbook, even previous work, Ghost Bandit, other books, absolutely. Where's the best place to go? If anybody wants to reach out, they have questions or anything else in your respective worlds, where's the best place to go?
Well, I mean, you can get it at Amazon, you can get it at tactical16.com. I have a website, jamespomerantzwriter.com. You can get all this, you can order books there too. Tom has a website. What's your website, Tom?
TomRubySeal.com.
Okay.
So a lot of ways to get it. Hopefully there'll be a lot more. We've had some major reviews come out that were 5 stars, and we're waiting on a big Kirkus review that's supposed to be out in a couple weeks. So we're just warming up.
I love it, man.
James, you're on Instagram, right?
Yeah. At James Pomerantz.
So
or at Pomerantz James.
Okay, I will put all of these links in the show notes. What a great story. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking a minute out. Best of luck. It's been a wonderful story. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.